We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You gotta say, I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
And now, Reality Rants with Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is Reality Rants. I am Jason Bermas. It's a gray day. It's a gray day. We're letting it all pop out. RedVoiceMedia.com. That's where you can get everything Jason Bermas. Remember, every single day that I do this now, even if you're not a premium member, you get a second hour anyway, because we released the second hour from 2 weeks ago. Sometimes they're interviews, sometimes they're watch-alongs, sometimes they're straight news. How much Jason Bermas can you really handle anyway? Okay, and today, what I wanted to do was a bit of an American, yes, with a K, year in review. I don't want to be hopeless. I want to show people also that there has been an actual awakening. I don't want to talk about, the Great Awakening or white hats coming in on chariots to save people. No. That's not reality sauce at all. Not even close. But the reality is more and more people are waking up to the agenda. Why? Because now the coming out party is here. It's here. It's full throttle. It's full throttle. We have a great narrative. If you question what that great narrative is, you are an enemy of democracy. You are, at the very least, a Russia enabler. And then depending on the issue, you are a something denier. Right? That's where we're at. So then you can get sold on, okay, and this is a big trap, a guy who's pushing the exact same agenda of the Bond villain they've put out in front as a talking head, as a mouthpiece for the agenda. So you have the antithesis of Klaus Nutschwab being what? Elon Muskernuts. Nutschwab, Muskernuts. Nutschwab, Muskernuts. And Muskernuts right now, again, we're in Amerika. So just stating the obvious about a story that is more than 2+ years old at this point. And what do I mean by 2+ years old? Obviously, you have it coming out in October, so that's 2+ then. But the Department of Justice has this laptop and is sitting on it for months and months and months. And that's because the Department of Justice, at the most high levels, at the uppermost echelons, is one of injustice and one that covers for the establishment. And if anybody out there was paying attention back in 2001, which most were not, right? People still thought we were in America with a C. But I got to tell you, I'll never forget it either. Watched a lot of history post 9/11. And even before 9/11, I was an AP history kid. I was that dork. Only got a 3 out of 5, though. was very upset I didn't get a 4 or a 5. 3, sometimes you get the college credit, sometimes you don't. But nonetheless, thought history was fascinating, and even recent history, because, again, the closer it was, the nearer it felt. And obviously the World War II era, just on its face, was just wow. So it's probably 2003, 2004, certainly before I get involved in Loose Change. And I'm pretty full throttle awake at this point. And I don't know what to do, because I feel isolated from other people's viewpoints, but at the same time, I realize that this is not like some kind of like fictitious thing or far out thing or even a thing of question that my government, especially those in federal law enforcement and the intelligence community, which again, we're supposed to all believe about this Hunter Biden laptop, by the way, the new establishment, we're completely lying to the public, enabling the murder of thousands of American citizens, the restructuring of society, and millions overseas. So I'm at a 4th of July event, and, American flags are everywhere, going back to the title of this and why we're talking about it. And all I pictured, I just looked around for a second, and sometimes, you have these moments of what I want to say, imaginative clarity. Imaginative clarity. What does that mean? Well, you know that you're creating a fantasy around you, but it's based on all of reality. It's an overlay of the reality that you're experiencing. You're not having a psychotic break where you think that this is actually happening. There's no drug use involved, but it's a moment where you can make an analogy to how they were able to take a society of well-meaning people, most of which just want the same thing that you and I want, which a decent place to live, an opportunity to have a family, an opportunity to enjoy life after working hard, for 40 hours a week. I mean, even 60 at this point, basic stuff. Have some dignity, be a human being. That's all we really want all the way across the board. How they make those people into tools of a war machine, and which we were at the time. Okay, just because the soldiers and what we were seeing in the media was limited didn't mean that Afghanistan wasn't happening, Iraq wasn't happening, and I was very, very knowledgeable about the drones. So I'm thinking about World War II era, and now I'm thinking about now, and just every flag turned into a Nazi flag for me. There's something there. It was a realization moment. And that's when I knew, I live in Amerika with a K. And this seems to be on a downward spiral. I didn't want it to be on a downward spiral. I continue to be pretty optimistic and work towards goals, and somehow I got into documentary filmmaking. I think my documentary films are pretty good. I'm really lucky to be doing that in my 20s. Looking back, when I was in my early 20s, guys, I'm going to be honest, when I was a beauty school dropout, aka I dropped out of college, and I didn't get my first desk job until 24, I felt like a loser. I know what desperation feels like, right? I came from this poor family. I was supposed to be the smartest person in my family. I'm out of school, just freshly dropped out right around 22 years old. When 9/11 happens, my life doesn't feel good. I know what those feelings are. And then on the flip side of that, for something disastrous and something that's consuming me at many points in my life, and it really is upsetting, like some of the psychology and the Bernaysian talking points that still go out to this day. In fact, we talked about Inside Job yesterday, and one of these talking points actually makes it in there, is that somehow a quote-unquote conspiratorial view of the world gave me some comfort in a world of chaos. Let me assure you, to this day, I would be much more comfortable with a Muslim enemy that struck us on 9/11 that we could go face off with in the Middle East and it wasn't about another agenda than people inside my own government and other allied governments that are working in conjunction with a network that's outside of the idea of a nation state, an international intelligence operation. Way more disturbing. Way more disturbing. So that's when I realized I lived in Amerika. When I was watching people like Robert Mueller, who resurfaced in another American operation. And the parallels with what they tell you about or told you about in the past, you're hearing about it now again with the Soviets, but not really the structure of their society. You heard a lot about it with the communist Chinese model as well back in the day. You don't hear about that much anymore, okay? So I got like way too many videos queued up, way too many. Some I know that I cannot play on the YouTube Ridge, but this is kind of like an American year in review. And what I want to do is I want to start off with their own propaganda. Jason, who are they? Who are they, Jason? Well, here's the beautiful thing. When I say things like they, I am often referring to even more than an idea. Although you could say like something like globalist when you're talking about global organizations and orders that are outwardly created for the homogenization of all of society via global systems and what? Global governance. So this was actually put out by the Davos people. Amerika, a year in review. So negatively, the mask is off. They're telling you what they're doing. Now they're spinning it because they got to look benevolent and they got to act like they're the best thing since breakfast. Okay? But this is the year that the party is out there, right? People started figuring this stuff out during the COVID 1984 nightmare. But their own propaganda now gets over the top. Remember we were playing the influencer, I think it's Sing lady, right? And she's talking about Greta Thunberg. Hey, y'all! And there was different flavors of that. It wasn't just the hip stuff, the Davos Daily that they were putting out. It was the media propaganda for the Fauci children's book on like the Get Uplifted. And by the way, shout out to longtime viewer and supporter Sarah Whalen. She hit me up with a Tipsky and Hutch and mentioned the hey y'all. So hey y'all, here is this is where the criminals describe their crimes to you, but in a way where you're just forced to be gaslit, like Joe Biden's the most popular president of all time, to accept it. Okay? Hey, y'all.
The pandemic has radically changed the world as we know it, and the actions we take today as we work to recover will define our generation.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis.
2020 has been challenging on a lot of levels, as economic, environmental, and societal frailties have been laid bare. But it's also proved that when we need to, we can act rapidly and restructure our lives.
We can act rapidly and restructure our lives. So the coming out party is here. And again, 2022 was the year that people started paying attention to this stuff. That throughout the nightmare, right? They started openly announcing, for instance, I'm going to play this clip of Klaus Nutschwab talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We're going to show you the UN propaganda, once again, of how we're going extinct with, voices like Jack Black. I like Jack Black. Jack Black's fun. In fact, I think Jack Black did a guest voice on this week's Rick and Morty, right? Again, fun show. But the agenda itself, that it's utilizing to co-opt us, that type of entertainment, no bueno.
Recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine, but there is no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout.
Nature needs a bailout. There's this new inoculation language with everything, including what? Media censorship, pre-bunking, malinformation. These are all things we've covered on the show before. They're new semantics for a techno-fascist collectivist society in which you must accept the reality imposed on you Karl Rove style. In other words, the one that the establishment decides upon and the one that it pushes on the masses that to them are just numbers. They're things to be managed.
You don't want to go back to the status quo that you had before simply because it was the status quo that got us here.
With everything falling apart, we can...
And again, everything falling apart. You watched yesterday's show? Did you see the second hour? I think even the last 10 minutes where we showed you some of their 1973 Club of Rome propaganda. Again, academia, businessmen, the same people that would become the Davos crowd, that group, telling you what, it didn't even matter what they put into their machine. Doom, everything falls apart. Everything is failing. Is it? Everything? It's a lot of things.
Reshape the world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face. And that's why so many are calling for a great reset.
Not so many. I mean, again, this is... A great reset is a buzz term. And you're allowed to use it if you're for it, if you're Davos putting out the propaganda, if you're Klaus Schwab discussing it in your books, you're allowed to talk about it. If you're me, you're Nick Nutsworth, right? And you are just kooky. That's it. You're Cam Cookerton. That's who you are. Well, I can't believe you're talking about this thing where a bunch of very powerful people who have never been elected that get together and openly talk about these things would do them, Jason. It's absurd. But again, this is, I mean, the world's waking up to this. And actually the next clip is a clip outside of the United States. But once again, because we're so connected on a digital level, it was the media, even in other nations, talking about this open Great Reset agenda on other channels. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's a couple out there. There's Tux talked about it. Ingram's talked about it, but then she'll have Karl Rove on, right? She'll cozy up to a James Woolsey. All these people. So Fox will talk about it a little bit. You won't hear it almost anywhere else, unless it's in passing. And it's in a positive light. But now we're on the internet, and there are other media outlets across the world talking about this thing, and that gets spread via social media networks. Okay? But let's get back to their propaganda in America.
A great reset? That sounds more like buzzword bingo masking some nefarious plan for world domination.
But don't worry, it's not. It's not buzzword bingo for world domination. Again, it's their coming out party. We're in the inversion of reality, but at the same time, they're just telling you, we're doing this whether you like it or not. There will be fractures. There will be a pain process. And what that is again, if you watched yesterday, especially that second hour, which I would encourage you to do, you saw that they wanted to restrict everything. And when they did, and especially stabilizing the population, nothing saved us anyway. And they were talking about how the energy was going to run out. There wasn't going to be any more oil. We couldn't produce it. No, now they're artificially shutting off the energy. That's what's actually happening. Because they're saying the carbon is bad for the planet. Buzzword bingo, masking some nefarious plan from a guy that looks like a Bond supervillain.
Hands up, this kind of slogan hasn't gone down well. But all we really want to say is that we all have an opportunity to build a better world.
You know, it's not about obeying, but it's about obeying. You like that? They even put the reference to John Carpenter's They Live in there. You got to wear the sunglasses. And that goes kind of, again, back to yesterday's broadcast when I was talking about how much this stuff has pierced popular culture. And that's an important thing. We have to commend ourselves on that. And although we're living in Amerika, more and more people are aware of this stuff. I'm afraid that so many are late to the party. They don't understand how deep it goes. They don't understand it goes beyond liberals and Democrats, and they think conservatives are going to save them, or their intelligence apparatus somehow can be saved. No. No. This got to be from the ground up. I mean, you got to have real prosecutions for real people. And we don't do the hopium here. But all they want to say, again, it's not nefarious. It's for a better world. They love you.
And it's not surprising that people who've been disenfranchised by a broken system and pushed even further by the pandemic will suspect global leaders of conspiracy.
Oh. I mean, it's okay to think that we're bad. It's okay. It's not unlikely. After all, as Klaus Nutzschwab tells us later, we're going to have to prepare for an angrier world.
But the world's not that simple.
First of all, again, and this is it. This goes back to me waking up to 9/11. This is an extension of that talking point that how somehow this is comforting to believe in this. No one said what I was just talking about, and all these people coming together with an agenda was simple or easy. You guys literally war game this stuff all over. You have an intricate system of plausible deniability via mechanisms of executive orders and emergency measures that you coordinate. There's nothing simple about it. The world's not that simple. We're not bad. We're trying to help. Okay.
Every one of us has differing priorities, values, and ideas. That's part of why solutions are so hard to come by, and why we all need to be involved in the decision-making.
Because we've been in the decision-making process for some time, right? The only time that the common people are ever a part of the decision process is, one, if they can have free and fair, accountable elections, one person, one vote, hold their officials accountable. Tough to do. The other one are when revolutions happen. When they are pushed to the breaking point and they usurp the structure that is currently in place. Big things change then. That's real. All right? But there's never been a time when everybody was a part of the decision-making process. Another bullshit buzz term that they're selling you in 2022 called stakeholder capitalism that will be incorporated with your social credit score while they give you their nice little CBDC.
Because whether it's politicians, CEOs, academics,
Greta! And I know it's all jumbled, but let's just, I kind of really do want to see. Yeah, there we go. There's Greta. There's Poot right there. We got Farrell. Don't forget the Al Gore. I'm not quite sure who's in the middle of the Biden, Klaus Schwab tag team handshake. But again, this is how out of touch these people are. They got George Bush in the background, and then you got Trump's daughter over there, and then you got the real tyrant, that prime minister in the back. But there's Greta. Look at these. This is the stuff they're putting out there, man. My God.
Activists or you. We're all about getting people together.
Merkel.
Even those you may not like. To sit down at the table and...
See, even those you might not like are sitting at the table. Bullshit. That's bullshit. No, they're not. They're not sitting at the table. My God.
Develop solutions that work for all of us. But...
we need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work. That trust is hard to come by.
It's time for people to work together, listen to each other, and build this trust.
Everybody wonders why I talk about NASA so much. The NASA propaganda is like interwoven into our culture and a big part of this globalist propaganda. So all of a sudden, everybody's hugging, and we have to work together, and it's on behalf of mankind, and it's about space travel. NASA, let's hug one another. We have to trust one another in the public and private sector. In the public and private sector. No. You have to hold, okay, the private sector and the government sector accountable, especially when they collude with one another against what? The public sector in America.
So we can move towards a better world. And we really need one. Because while the pandemic affects us all, it's clear it affects some more than others.
The first people who are hit are the people at the front, those who are vulnerable. It is those on the front line who take it first. And that is simply unacceptable.
See, at the start of 2020, 1% of the world's population owned 44% of the wealth. And since the start of the pandemic, billionaires have increased theirs by more than 25%, whilst 150 million people fell back into extreme poverty.
You gotta love them at least openly. Again, the coming out party. And people are now starting to see this. And that's the one positive. But look at, I mean, think about this. They're like, yeah. So by the way, the billionaires got way richer and consolidated their resources on a massive level. And then a lot of other people got way poorer. But trust us to restructure the society. We can fix it, even though the people that did that are the ones we're speaking on behalf of. And the Musker nuts himself, we go over it all the time. We talk about it all the time here. Why? Because it's important. He increased his wealth 600% during that time period. Tesla, okay, produced machines via what? Getting the contracts of CureVac. They printed a lot of you-know-what. Made a lot of scratchola. A lot of cheese, guys. But again, they're benevolent. It's buzzword bingo. We get why you don't trust us, but trust us anyway.
And with climate change set to dwarf the damage caused by the pandemic, the message from 2020 should be abundantly clear.
Pandemic, climate change. Pandemic, climate change. Pandemic lockdown, climate lockdown. Pandemic, climate change. Even when Veritas did their little investigation into CNN and got a bunch of those guys on camera via the fake Tinder dates and all that, what were they constantly talking about? Shifting the narrative to climate change. What has Prince Charles, now the King of England, King Charles talked about? Climate change, a Marshall Plan. No, boy, no. No, thank you. I don't want it. I don't want it. I want nothing to do with it at all. Not even a little bit. We got a new subscriber over at Rockfin, Slappy Nuts PhD. Just subscribe through my post. I appreciate that. We do. And by the way, over at YouTube, 230 plus watching. Can we get the thumbs up for America? Can we get 100 thumbs up for America, folks? We still got almost 2 minutes left in this self-produced propaganda piece. And it's, again, you almost have to thank them for it. Because they put this out themselves, 2020. We're at the end of 2022, the year in review. Their coming out party is even beyond this, right? You got like almost an entire media blackout right now, running on the Agenda 2030 tag that's gone viral. Because what? People have had enough. They don't like this. The farmers don't like them taking over the resources and creating artificial scarcity and telling them what they can and can't do on their land. They don't like this. It doesn't look like they're getting a say. You understand? Remember, everybody's supposed to have a say. Are these people having a say in their little agenda? Of their public-private partnership? Huh? And again, you don't see this in America in 2022. But they want to bring this here. More people in America are figuring out because of propaganda pieces like the one we're watching. Because they understand now maybe it's not the greatest idea that Monsanto and Bayer partnered up, and one of their big investors, old Billy Gatesy, owns a bunch of farmland. Maybe that's not the best thing, huh? So again, do these voices matter? Are they?
Brussel
Are they part of this thing where they're talking about? And again, they'll show you disaster videos, just like yesterday. Dun, 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 dun. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. They're showing you trash and cars and people and pollution. Same ball game here, bro. See it, bro? Maybe people are finally waking up. I really hope so.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead.
I love it. So, again, it's 2022. We're in America. They're openly talking about the central bank digital currencies. They're openly talking about a social credit score and a carbon credit score. I was watching earlier today, you know, when I get ready for the show, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just type in like a video format into one of my big old folders. Basically what I did today. That's why I got like 40 things up here. And I was watching a clip of myself and Alex Jones during one of the money bombs, one of the initial money bombs, well over a decade ago now, probably closer to 15 years, 13, 14 years ago. And we're sitting there talking about it, and it's like the run of we were doing like a weekend thing. And it was like almost 1 in the morning Eastern time, so it was like almost midnight Central time. And I was like, I know it's time to go to the Mickey D's drive-thru, right? Going to that nice 24/7 drive-thru, spend a couple bucks on some cheeseburgers back when they had the 99-cent menu, right? The good old days. R.I.P. capitalism. F you, Ronald McDonald. And I said, hey, give it over to InfoWars, or if you don't want to just straight donate, at the time they had prisonplanet.tv. Do that. Do something with the money. Jones jumps on, we start talking, and then I started talking about what? Your carbon credit score. And I already want to warn you, you know, everybody thinks that it's bad what they've done over in China with Apple. That's the model. They already have a trust rating for you. They've had a trust rating for you, especially if you're in this Apple ecosystem, whether you like it or not. You're an iTunes gal. You're an iTunes bro. Huh, Chief? You like the iPhone? You like the FaceTime? You already got a trust rating. You've already got a trust rating. And I guarantee you the metadata that device creates alone, incorporated with everything else that you can get via purchase. You know, I don't talk about it enough, but they have recognition. It's called Alfonso. Okay, it's old. And they got other recognition software on this too, where all these smart devices, my TV out there, my Xbox, all right, my phone, they're constantly doing audio content recognition. And if they have a camera, video content recognition. In other words, they can access these things. Doesn't mean the light has to come on. Recognition. And because it's not in the traditional sense of wiretapping or recording or a human being listening to it, they run algorithms based on that. And then they create the advertising in real time. But they also put that into your algorithm and incorporate it into your trust rating. Okay? RIP capitalism. And I had my say. Did you have your say on that? You know, and again, it wasn't the wealthy. It wasn't the predator class. It wasn't the WEF crowd that purposely imploded the economy globally. It's not them. No, of course not. That's absurd, Jason.
This obsession that we have had with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency.
But no one can do this alone, and top-down approaches won't get us anywhere.
Again, the idea that somehow this whole thing isn't a top-down approach, but they'll throw in disaster, disaster, disaster. We're coming to save ya!
Because everything we've learned in our work has shown us that diverse voices lead to better results.
Diverse equity. There's the Zuck. He's pretty diverse, huh? I like the Zuck. You like the Zuck?
And it's for these reasons that the forum talks about...
And Xi Jinping. The Zuck and the Ping. It's very nice. Again, I want to get a nice shot of everybody here. Will.i.am's there. I like the Black Eyed Peas, huh? Prince William. Horrendous hairline. I mean, for all the perks in the world, guys, if you're a man like myself with, decent hair in his 40s. Would you trade it all to be the prince over here? Not me. I'll keep the hair and my day-to-day lifestyle and working hard. You too, Charles. No offense. You got the leader of the Philippines there as well. I don't quite know everybody here, but there's a dog. I like dogs. They got me there. Go World Economic Forum. Let's go back.
That the forum talks about something called stakeholder capitalism, which would shift businesses away from just profit. Because
if we want to change where the focus of our recovery will go, then we need a new dashboard for the new economy. And that needs to encompass people, planet, prosperity, and institutions.
Giving people a real stake in the economy and putting well-being before growth. And that's all about getting the right people in the right place at the right time.
That's called imagination land. That's called you'll own nothing and be happy. And it'll be the equalization of the quote-unquote haves and have-nots. But the have-most turn into the have-everythings. All right? There is no such thing as zero ownership and that type of collectivism. In fact, it is the private ownership, which is the true expression of a free humanity and allows us to structure ourselves as a free humanity. Private ownership. Very important. Hugely important.
We must rebuild our relationship with nature for the survival of the peoples and our planet.
I mean, I'm glad I should totally listen to that person. Like, I have no idea what that person's culture is, but let me put a guess. Whatever that is, that's Hindo Omaran Abraham, indigenous rights activist. I'm gonna guess that the get up there's a whole lot of grandstanding. Okay? And a whole lot of cultural appropriation. And the idea that it's this new Gaia religion. Again, it's the idea human beings are bad, especially here in America. We're the worst. We've had a standard of living that just, compared to other people, we don't deserve it, right? So we're bad, nature good, but the people that have actually created the mechanisms that have compromised nature in many ways and destroyed it in others, they're fixing the problem by putting the kibosh on you and I. We're the bad ones.
We have a window of time which is closing, and we need everybody who cares to get together and find solutions.
By the way, that's Gorillas in the Mist. Jane Goodall, conservationist now. Oh, thank you, Jane. Thank you so much for telling me and mine how we must live our lives on this massive planet. Thanks, Jane.
Now.
It's the people who have great ideas and who share them with others. They're the ones who are shaping the future. So if you want to be a part of the change, then tune in, turn on, and get involved. Follow the Davos Agenda, right here, online, on YouTube.
And by the way, it's coming on up again. It's on the way. Right around the corner. 2022, a year in review, is where a lot of people woke up to that trash. And this is one of those news pieces that started getting passed around. So this is the upside, that people are waking up to it because their agenda's right out in the open. They're telling you what they're doing. They're just telling you they're the good guys, and anyone thinks otherwise. We get it, but no, not really. We get it, but no, not really. And let's reinforce that with a montage of the movers, the shakers, the thinkers, the people that are going to be involved in that stakeholder capitalism. The you guys is all masked up. Let's end it with that montage. Great. Smart. So let's play this news piece right here. By the way, thumbs it up. We're not even at 100 thumbs up yet. Let's get 150 thumbs up. And remember, we're about 20 minutes before we go over to redvoicemedia.com/Jason for the uncensored hour of the broadcast. You can listen for free over the infowarrior.podbean.com. And by the way, if you don't want to wait the 2 weeks and you're just listening to this stuff in the background, I get it. and you can just go check out the Podbean as well. Share that RSS feed. Again, I want to thank the new subscribers over at Rockfin, but the great subscription model that I love over at Red Voice Media is that they're invested in this daily show. So for $100 a year, if you sign up all at once, you get my show for a year. I'm sticking around, guys. 4 days a week, second half, big interviews, stuff that we can't talk about on YouTube, unfortunately. And we are doing broadcasts outside of the morning show as well for total free, right? We just did Mixed Martial Mindset with John Fitch yesterday. I thought that was a great broadcast. I want you to check that as well. Let's get to this news clip here. And again, this agenda is so out in the open that more and more have to speak about it.
Some of you may have heard of the Great Reset. That's the hiding in plain sight agenda of the World Economic Forum. They're one of the globalist institutions staffed by leftist elites that want to dictate how you live your life that I mentioned earlier. It was started by a chap named Klaus Schwab, who's run what is the equivalent of the Woodstock for the super rich and super powerful, Davos, for many, many years. Davos is not now, although there are fewer private planes parked there this year than normal. And it's not because they're practicing what they preach and they've all gone green and ditched the gas guzzlers, but it's because of coronavirus. The hypocrisy of these so-called leaders jetting in to lecture about the need to take urgent action on climate change by reducing emissions is positively laughable if they weren't so serious about making you pay the price.
Exactly. You know, again, actions speak louder than words. But Klaus Schwab's follow-up to the Great Reset, right, their buzzword bingo that they're telling you about, is the Great Narrative, where they literally want to make their words the reality that you can no longer challenge, or you're part of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. And above that, they'd like to criminalize that speech, that thought, that attempt to be the great resistance to this very real Great Reset agenda.
And the problem was that too many people were starting to laugh at the preposterous climate claims, most notably about humanity only having 5 years left to live on Earth. These claims, of course, were updated every 4 years or so to kick the annihilation plan down the road. And no one, or should I say with half a brain, can take them seriously anymore. So in the face of that mockery, a new plan was hatched, this time using coronavirus as the justification to make the very same changes. They've changed the title, though. It's now called the Great Reset. And here is what the WEF Ubermeister has to say about it.
So in terms of changing our mindset, and here what is at the forefront is to create a new model, a new concept, a new definition of capitalism. Capitalism in the old definition comprises only financial capital, but actually human and social capital is and of course natural capital is as important as...
The Great Reset is only a new term to mask their previous failures to control economic and social foundations.
But it's the extension into not just the Internet of Things and that metadata and the track trace database society and algorithms to run your life, but to get under the skin and say that's a part of the stakeholder capitalism as well, to move you into transhumanism and biomimetics, their fourth industrial revolution, as they bring in robotization to automate you out of the economy. They, the predator class, the World Economic Forum, okay, working as their mouthpiece, as a vehicle for this.
The World Economic Forum is just a cabal of climate crusaders and social engineers. They think they know what is best for the rest of us. It's a veritable who's who of people you should actually be very concerned about. Prince Charles, Al Gore, and climate child Greta Thunberg are among their throng. So is the Secretary General of the United Nations, the President of the European Central Bank, The managing director of the International Monetary Fund, George Soros, World Trade Union leaders, chief executives of all the big tech companies, and representatives of non-government organisations like Greenpeace and the World Wildlife Fund. Bizarrely, so too is Australian Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young. She even appears prominently on their website.
Oh.
Now, it says a lot when a senator elected to represent South Australia is on the anti-capitalist website featuring some of the greatest hypocrites in our lifetimes. It might even give you some cause for concern.
I mean, again, are we allowed to call out obvious hypocrisy? Not in the post-truth world. Not during the great narrative. Not when Agenda 2030 is real and the people that are supposed to have a say, the farmers, don't have a say at all. At all in this. You know, unfortunately, the fractures in these systems are going to cause pain for you and I. Not the people speaking on the podium. No biggie. No big deal. It's America.
Perhaps you could raise them with the senator. But having worked with her in the Senate, I will only say that birds of a feather do indeed tend to flock together. Or let me put it another way. You're much braver than me if you entrust your future to that lot.
Totally agree. I'm going to get to this piece right here. Again, United Nations, climate change, climate change, climate change, moving you away from the COVID-1984 nightmare and into one of we need action for climate change with a dinosaur, Jack Black. Who doesn't love a dinosaur, Jack Black, everybody? We're at the United Nations, so important. Oh boy, what's this? Oh boy. Oh my goodness. It's a velociraptor. Oh, let's get our phones out. Or is that a T-Rex? I don't know. It's kind of big. It's got the T-Rex type arms. Velociraptor.
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Okay. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction.
And again, you know, I talk about the space program all the time and the indoctrination there. But the only thing that might rival it globally and culturally are dinosaurs. I loved dinosaurs as a kid. I mean, not to go off on too much of a rant here, but it's kind of what I do. One of my first memories of the school book program, if not my first memory, we went down the line. Again, Aliens is another big one. My Teacher is an Alien series. That's a big thing where I remember the books and that I couldn't wait for, you know, to order. You got the little thing. You had the book order. You gave the money. Oh, my goodness. And then they had the book fair, and you had the ones that you already ordered, but then you could buy other ones. As a small kid, there was a little bit of an expensive one, but I was really excited about it. I was a poor kid. Somehow my parents made it happen. It's probably something like, I don't know, like $10 or $15 at the time, which was expensive for a book in the 80s. But it was this dinosaurs pop-up book. And I had done the Dinosaurs Alive, if you remember that. I think they still do something like that with the animatronic dinosaurs over in New York City as a trip. I was hooked, man. I was totally hooked. Dinosaurs, dinosaurs, dinosaurs. I know kids of that era had those phases. But what does everybody know about the dinosaurs? Two things. They went completely extinct, and man did not walk with the dinosaurs. Now, I'm not quite sure about either one of those, to be quite frank. You know, you look at alligators, crocodiles, certain types of birds. Did they survive those eras? Something did, right? There are certainly at least some, you know, cave drawings and other historical references that suggest that man may have walked with large creatures that we don't know about. if you believe, even in like the Jurassic Park series, and I haven't watched the last one, although I heard it was awful, which sucks. They talk about how when they resurrected them, they used lizard and frog DNA on purpose because they had to fit kind of the narrative, that great narrative, of what dinosaurs were supposed to look like, when in fact most of them probably had feathers. Some of them might have had hair, but that didn't fit the narrative, so they didn't want that. And here you have your traditional-looking dinosaur telling you about mass extinction and about to lecture human beings at the most authoritative of places where we can all come together under globalism, the United Nations.
And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid.
And the asteroid theory. So yeah, and maybe that happened. Maybe that happened. Maybe it didn't. Maybe there's a totally different explanation for it. I don't know. I'm only 43.
What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now.
Giant, really? Because I was pretty sure that giant meteors don't power civilization, don't allow for freedom of movement, don't allow industry, don't allow you to heat your home. I didn't know meteors did that, dinosaur Jack Black.
Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species?
So, one of those things that we were talking about yesterday when we played the United Nations, like Club of Rome sustainability video, was this idea. They always play on it. And 40 years ago, they were playing on it, right? More than 40, almost 50. It was 1973. People are starving. People are hungry. Why haven't we built these people an infrastructure? Why are people starving in resource-rich nations? Look what's even happening in this country. Why are we having the level of poverty we do, to where it's spilling out into city streets everywhere, and it's making its way into smaller cities and suburbia? Why is that happening, Jack Black Dinosaur? You won't hear about any of that. You will hear a lot about climate change. Almost 300 people over at YouTube. Can we get 200 thumbs up? Can we do it? We're going over to Red Voice Media in less than 10 minutes, folks. I'd encourage you to come down. We got a whole lot of videos to go over after this.
Let me be real for a second. You've got a huge opportunity right now as you rebuild your economies and...
You got to love it. You got huge, everybody's got it's an opportunity. See the same talking point in their little propaganda piece there? There's a big opportunity. And all the nodding mask people, yeah, they're serious.
Bounce back from this pandemic. This is humanity's big chance. So here's my wild idea. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes. Thank you.
Let's clap for the dinosaur Jack Black. Yeah, he showed some kids on the earth on screens at the United Nations. Woo! Woo! America. Now, before I go over to Premium, there was another thing that I felt that I wanted to discuss 2022 in review, is this gaslighting of the January 6th committee and an insurrection and now sedition charges. And I want to remind everybody deep down, what did the QAnon shaman actually look like? Well, not only what did he look like, what did he do? This is the Muffin Man. This is a guy that's dressed up in cosplay uniforms, drank the hopium full throttle, believed people were going to come and save him. No. And it's now probably going to spend many years in prison. Take the outfit off him. Take the ridiculous media spin off him. This is 60 Minutes, and this is what this guy looks like.
Your actions on January 6th were an attack on this country. Do you understand that?
No, they were not, ma'am. My actions were not an attack on this country. That is incorrect. That is inaccurate entirely.
How would you describe them?
My actions personally?
On January 6th.
My actions on January 6th, how would I describe them? Well, I sang a song, and that's a part of shamanism. It's about creating positive vibrations in a sacred chamber. I also stop people from stealing and vandalizing that sacred space, the Senate. Okay, I actually stopped somebody from stealing muffins out of the break room.
Think about the absurdity. I'm going to bring it back because I can't get enough of this. He's actually smiling during it because, you know, as gone as he is, you know, the QAnon sense shaman. And I mean, this is, I don't know, it's probably like a week or two after they put him in jail. I mean, look at him. Look how frail he looks. This guy, again, living with his parents, didn't have a lot going on, doing shamanism, scooting away from reality, but he protected those muffins. The Muffin Man is the insurrectionist. What planet are we on? We're in planet America. We're in a post-truth world suffering a great narrative. Let's bring it back to his description of what he did. He sang a song, and he stopped people from stealing muffins.
I sang a song, and that's a part of shamanism. It's about creating positive vibrations in a sacred chamber. I also stop people from stealing and vandalizing that sacred space, the Senate. Okay, I actually stopped somebody from stealing muffins out of the break room. I also said a prayer in that sacred chamber because it was my intention to bring divinity and to bring God back into the Senate.
But Jake, legally, you were not allowed to be in what you're calling the sacred chamber.
And that is the one very serious regret that I have, was believing that when we were waved in by police officers, that it was acceptable.
Do you still believe you're a patriot?
I consider myself a lover of my country. I consider myself a believer in the Constitution. I consider myself a believer in truth and our founding principles. I consider myself a believer in God.
And I consider him a man that stopped muffin theft on January 6th. Serious crime. All right, one more clip before we go over to premium. That's redvoicemedia.com/Jason. Use that hyperlink. Sign up today. Really helps if you get that year-long subscription. Sign up now, $100. Save yourself the Scratchola, and that saves you 2 whole months. It's Christmas time, and it locks it in. It helps me. This is a Parler executive, and one of the reasons I'm playing this, I believe this is the clip where she talks about the Faustian bargain. Faustian, haha, little slip of the tongue there. The Faustian bargain of censorship via the big tech platforms and even app stores against free speech in collusion with government mechanisms.
Destroying the social media app Parler and ripping it off the internet was a team effort. It took more than simply Amazon and Apple and Google. Amy Peikoff is a chief policy officer there at Parler. She joins us to tell us which other companies were involved in this historic attack on free speech and our civil liberties, because you should know their names. Amy, it's great to see you tonight. Thank you for coming on. I'm sorry Parler is still not up, as I'm sure our viewers know. Tell us, if you would.
And by the way, who's even talking about Parler at this point? You see how this works? I hear about Getter, Gab's still around, Truth Social's getting media. He just talked about Odyssey. But with the technopolies that have now been built, where they can literally, you can build your own and then be deplatformed anyway, that is that bargain that's being discussed in this review of 2022.
Because we want to know who they are. Who participated in this attack on the First Amendment and on your company?
Hi, Tucker. Thanks. So other companies that were involved were Twilio, who dropped us. We are also having issues with a CAPTCHA, using any sort of a CAPTCHA in our program. Flurry dropped us. There's also people that you weren't really aware of unless you were into the tech, the people who actually connect you to the internet and provide nodes, and the hosts, who domain hosts, et cetera, and those are the people on the tech side that I'm not as aware of. But there are a number of people involved, and whether they're all working together or whether they're all just caving into the same cancel culture pressure, obviously at Parler we do think that we were singled out unfairly because this content that nobody wants on anywhere on their platforms, this inciting content that is wrong, was unfortunately everywhere, as you've read in stories this week from the Washington Post and elsewhere.
So once again, you look at this, and the big players are totally exempt. All right, they're acting as Trojan horse civilian systems. And now here we are with the Hunter Biden laptop story, just exacerbating what we already knew. It is collusion. It's not just everybody caving to cancel culture. It is collusion. Collusion.
I assume most of them are just greedy, soulless little robots who will do whatever it takes to continue to loot the country.
Well,
it's not like they have an ideological agenda.
Whether they have agenda or not, here's one of the things that I think is going on, at least with the bigger tech companies. People have been talking about collusion. Is there collusion involved? But what if the truth is actually a lot worse, and that Parler is just the latest casualty in a sort of Faustian bargain that big tech has made with statist government? And by this I mean that big tech has made itself dependent on immunity with respect to its two major prongs for monetization that it depends on. So one of them is this content moderation, removing pieces of content. They have immunity for that under Section 230, and that also includes the curation of feeds and the algorithms that they use to do that increase engagement.
There you go. That's the big one. And with that, that's where we're going to leave, and we're going to go over to redvoicemedia.com/Jason, the uncensored part of the broadcast. We're giving the shout out to the producers. We're going to leave YouTube right now, 300 plus watching. I'd love to bring 30 of you over there. Come on over. If you just want to listen to the program, you can do so for free over on Podbean. Thumbs it up on the way out, guys. But YouTube, it's time.